Have you ever wondered how far betrayal can go, especially when it comes from the very people meant to protect us? Today, I'll be sharing a heartbreaking yet powerful story of a young girl whose life took a devastating turn in the hands of someone she called family. This is not just a story about pain and justice. It is a story about courage, resilience, and the fight to protect our children. Stay tuned because what unfolds will leave you speechless. In the quiet village of Umuoma, life was simple and people relied on each other for support. Everyone knew everyone, and the local churches played a big role in the community. Pastor Chinedu and his wife, Mama Ada, were respected members of the Pentecostal church. Pastor Chinedu preached about love, forgiveness, and faith every Sunday, and his wife was known for her kindness. One day, tragedy struck. Mama Ada's younger sister, Nkechi, and her husband was killed in a terrible car accident. The couple left behind their only child, Amara, a bright-eyed little girl who was just 3 years old. With no other relatives to care for her, Mama Ada took Amara into her home. "She will be like my own child," Mama Ada told her husband. "We will raise her with love." Amara moved into their home and quickly adjusted to her new surroundings. She was a shy but cheerful child, always clutching her favorite doll wherever she went. Mama Ada loved her dearly, often calling her "my little sunshine." On the surface, their household seems like the perfect family, but behind closed doors, darkness lurked. Late one night, while Mama Ada was away visiting a church member, Pastor Chinedu entered Amara's room. He smiled at her and whispered, "It's our little secret." At first, Amara didn't understand what was happening, but over time, the fear and pain became unbearable. He warned her never to tell anyone, claiming that God would punish her if she did. This pattern continued for 3 long years. Amara's once bright eyes dimmed and her laughter faded. She became withdrawn, afraid to trust anyone. Her behavior at school changed and her teacher, Miss Nneka, began to notice. One afternoon, Miss Nneka observed Amara walking strangely. Concerned, she called the girl aside. "Amara, my dear, are you okay?" she asked softly. Amara hesitated, tears welling in her eyes. Uncle Chinedu, he hurt me," she whispered. Miss Nneka froze, her heart breaking. She immediately reported the matter to the school authorities, who contacted the police. Amara was taken to the hospital, where doctors confirmed that she had been sexually abused for a long time. The news reached Reverend Father Eze, a Catholic priest in the neighboring town. Reverend Father Eze is Amara's maternal uncle. When he heard what had happened, he was enraged. "This cannot be swept under the rug," he declared. "Justice must be served." Father Eze took the matter to court, filing charges against Pastor Chinedu. The revelation shocked the village, dividing the community. Some defended Pastor Chinedu, claiming it was the devil's work, while others demanded accountability. As the court proceedings began, Amara's story sparked a wave of outrage. Villagers who had long admired Pastor Chinedu were forced to confront the reality of his actions. The case also unearthed shocking revelations about his past, leaving the community shaking to its core. But the battle for justice was far from over. The court proceedings against Pastor Chinedu became the talk of the town. In the small village of Umuoma, where everyone knew everyone, the case divided families, churches, and friendships. Some villagers whispered in corner, saying the priest, Father Eze, was too harsh for not forgiving Pastor Chinedu. Others praised his courage, saying he was a voice for the voiceless. But for little Amara, none of this mattered. She was scared, confused, and deeply hurt. Despite her uncle's effort to protect her, the trauma she had endured left deep scars. The kind teacher, Miss Nneka, who first noticed the signs, decided to help Amara by visiting her regularly. She brought coloring books, told her stories, and encouraged her to draw her feelings. Meanwhile, in the courtroom, Father Eze faced intense pressure from the members of Pastor Chinedu's church. They argued that Chinedu was a man of God and deserved forgiveness. Even the Bible says to forgive 70 times, 7 times. One elder pleaded, but Father Eze stood firm. Forgiveness does not erase justice. Amara deserves to see that the law protects her, he replied. The case took a shocking turn when an investigator uncovered a diary hidden in Pastor Chinedu's study. It contained disturbing entries, revealing that Amara was not his first victim. Years ago, in another town, he had targeted a teenage girl who was too afraid to speak up. This evidence strengthened the case against him, leaving his defense team scrambling for a strategy. While the trial continued, Mama Ada, Amara's aunt, was caught in the middle. She was torn between her husband, who she once trusted completely, and her niece, whom she loved like her own child. One night, she confronted Pastor Chinedu in jail. Why? Why did you do this to her? To me? She asked, tears streaming down her face. But Chinedu only repeated, it was the devil's work. As the community grew more divided, a local advocacy group stepped in. They organized awareness campaigns, teaching parents and guardians how to spot the signs of abuse and protect their children. The group also supported Amara, offering therapy and a safe space for her to heal. The courtroom battles were intense, with lawyers from both sides presenting powerful arguments. But just when it seems like the case would conclude, another unexpected twist emerged. One of Chinedu's former victims decided to come forward and testified. The courtroom was packed to capacity as the trial of Pastor Chinedu reached its climax. Lawyers from both sides sped with sharp arguments and impassioned pleas. The air was heavy with anticipation as villagers, journalists, and advocacy groups gathered to witness justice unfold. The prosecution opened its final argument with chilling evidence. A forensic psychologist explained the long-term effects of child abuse on victims, using Amara's case as a heartbreaking example. This child may never fully recover. The expert said the defendant's actions has stolen her innocence and left her with scars that may last a lifetime. The defense countered by painting Chinedu as a flawed but repentant man. He has served this community for years, baptizing children, marrying couples, and feeding the poor. His lawyer argued, he has begged for forgiveness, and surely, as Christians, we must forgive. The tension in the courtroom rose as the prosecution presented its star witness, Adara, the woman who had testified about her experience as a teenager in another village. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she recounted how Chinedu had cornered her after a prayer meeting years ago. "I was too scared to tell anyone back then," she said, "but I can't stay silent anymore." As Adora stepped down, murmurs filled the room. It was clear to many that this wasn't just about Amara. It was about exposing a predator who had operated unchecked for years. The defense, however, had one last trick up its sleeve. They presented a signed affidavit from an anonymous source claiming that Adaura had fabricated her story out of revenge for being rejected by Chinedu years ago. The courtroom gasped. The judge demanded an investigation into the document's authenticity. But the prosecution was ready. They revealed that the affidavit was fake, traced back to a church member loyal to Chinedu. The defense credibility took a massive hit, and the tide of the case turned decisively. Throughout the trial, Father Eze sat quietly in the gallery, his face a mark of calm and determination. When asked to make a statement, he spoke briefly but powerfully. Forgiveness does not mean excusing evil. Justice must prevail, not just for Amara, but for every child who has suffered in silence. After weeks of testimonies, arguments, and shocking revelations, the judge finally delivered the verdict. "Pastor Chinedu," he said, his voice echoing in the silent courtroom, "you have abused your position of trust and caused irreparable harm. You are hereby found guilty of all charges and sentenced to 25 years in prison." A mist of gasps and sighs of relief filled the room. Some of Chinedu's supporters wept openly, while others sat in stunned silence. Mama Ada, overwhelmed with grief and shame, quietly left the courtroom. Amara's teacher, Miss Nneka, held the little girl's hand tightly as they walked out of the courthouse. Though justice had been served, the journey towards healing was just beginning for Amara. As the news spread, advocacy groups in Umuoma and beyond intensified their campaigns to raise awareness about child molestation. Workshops were held in schools and churches, teaching parents and children how to recognize and report abuse. The moral of this story was clear. When victims are too afraid to speak up, predators continue their harm unchecked. Society must create safe spaces for victims to share their stories. While forgiveness is a personal choice, justice ensures that actions have consequences, especially for crimes that destroy lives. Position of power, even in religious settings, should not be immune to scrutiny. Communities must remain vigilant to protect the vulnerable. Pastor Chinedu's conviction became a turning point for the village. Though the scars of his actions would take time to heal, Umuoma began a new chapter, one where silence was broken and justice spoke louder than fear. Hello viewers, if you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think about this story in the comment section. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channels. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your constant support. I don't take it for granted. See you in my next video. Bye.